Morning you guys, it's Karen and I wanted to do a video to help you with some ideas of what you can do if you're thinking your dog is ill but you're not sure. This is something that's happened to me so many times, and I know from talking to friends and other dog owners that they often have days like this where you feel like your dog is just not themselves and you're like, are they ill? Do I need to take them to the vet? And it may be one thing that's happened. Maybe they didn't eat their dinner and they usually do, or maybe they haven't drunk much water and they usually do, or they seem a bit lethargic, just something, and you're not sure, but you don't know, you don't feel there's perhaps enough to take them to the vet. So I've got 6 checks you can do here to see if there are any signs of them being actually ill. These are things that I learned in the first aid for dogs, the canine first aid dog qualification that I received and course that I did, and they have been really useful for me. So it's something to put your mind at rest. Like the other day, Watson didn't eat his breakfast and then he didn't eat his dinner and he hadn't drunk anything all day. Other than that, he was quite sprightly. He'd eaten treats, he'd eaten his treats, he'd done his training, and he wasn't lethargic, but I was just, his bowels were fine, and I was just like, is something wrong? It's definitely not enough to go to the vet. I can't take him to the vet and go, he just hasn't eaten for one day. And he did eventually eat in the evening. But what I was able to do was run through these tests and go, you know what, he seems to be fine. Checks are also brilliant. If you do take your dog to the vet, you can tell them, his heart rate seems a bit high, or his respiratory rate's a bit low, or, you can tell them what you have found. So let's get straight to it. Number 1 is check the gums. And so the gums should be moist and pink, not pale and dry. So all you need to do, this sounds simple, but some dogs won't be happy at you doing this. So make sure you don't get bitten, but just lift up and press on the gums and see if they feel dry or not. So just like that, and see if you think they feel, if you can run your finger along the gums, you could even just put your finger in like so and just do that. If it feels silky and moist, then that is good. If it feels dry and they look a bit pale, it could be that the dog is dehydrated. If the dog is dehydrated, you can obviously note that down as there's one symptom if you like, but think, have they drunk all day? Now with Watson, he generally doesn't drink during the day. He doesn't drink anything before 4 o'clock, sort of when I guess he starts to eat. And when he had some blood tests recently, it did come up that he was dehydrated, but they said that does sometimes happen with dogs that don't drink much throughout the day. What you can do, and what I do if I feel like Watson hasn't drunk enough, if it gets to, like last night, it got to about 6 or 7 o'clock and he hadn't had a drink of water, I will mix a tiny bit of dog milk, which is just goat's milk basically, in with a bit of water, and that seems to attract him enough to drink it. If he then wouldn't drink that, and say he hadn't drunk all day and it was late at night, you get these little syringes. Let me get one. Sorry, I should have been better prepared than that. These sort of syringes, and you can just syringe up some water, and just like you would medication, you can open their mouth and syringe in some water and they will swallow it. These were a saviour for me when Watson was extremely dehydrated. In the first couple of months we had him, he had swallowed a stone and had all sorts of problems, and one of which was dehydration, and the vet had told me I had to bring him back the following day, and if he wasn't at that point rehydrated, they would have to keep him on a drip. So we had rehydration salts to give him every hour, and then every half an hour I would also suck up some water and just give him some water from this, and I feel like that's the reason he didn't get admitted. So that's one way you can get them perhaps a little bit rehydrated, and it's something you can do and see if that helps with the dryness, because it may have gone a stage further than just being able to heal it with water. I should say, of course, it's totally advisable to go to the vet with any symptom that your dog is showing. It's just my personal opinion, I guess, that with Watson not eating for a short amount of time, I think it would be pointless going to the vet at that point. And for me, being a worrier, I also know that sometimes it is just that, it is just me worrying, and I'm assuming there's lots of other people out there that are like me. And also perhaps you can't afford to go for a vet visit every time. Talk of the devil. Okay, the next check you can make is their bowels. Are you getting nice firm sausages? Sorry, it's going to be a poo conversation. Are you getting nice firm sausages? If so, that is a great sign. I'm sure you'll know if you have a dog that the state of their poo is a big indicator of how healthy they are. If they are suddenly liquid and there is any kind of blood in them, then obviously that is a reason to go immediately to the vet. usually. For us, however, Watson has colitis, and we now know the signs, and that is that it immediately turns liquid, and it has a deep orange, a sort of orangey red colour to it, and it's very frightening. But when it happened last time, I phoned the vet and they said that is his colitis flaring up. Normally for Watson that takes about a week to right itself and to heal, but I have got something here to show you that could help. So anything really serious, if it's completely liquid and or there's any blood in it, I would suggest going immediately to the vet, because that is a big sign. If it is just soft at the end, if you have a couple of firm sausages and then, you know, a bit of liquid or a bit of soft, that is generally thought to be from too much food, or from too much junk food, too much human food. And that's also the case if you have one poop that is firm but soft at the end. That's thought to be from too much human food or too much junk food. Just something I think is interesting to know. So when I first saw this that I'm going to show you, which is called Dicky Tummy, I was a bit dubious, because I thought, well, it's great to have something in for an upset tummy, but I was thinking, if Watson has an upset tummy, firstly you think you want everything to come out. You want them, if they've got something in their stomach, you want them to vomit, you want it to come out the other end, because you need to clear the system of it. And secondly, you don't want to suppress it, because if it continues on, you need to know so that you can take them to the vet. So in most cases, I would say you probably need to let nature take its course. However, if you know that your dog ate a crab at the beach and that's why it's got an upset bum, or it's feeling sick or being sick or not eating its food, or like me, you have a dog with colitis where you know that something will flare it up, and it's probably something he's eaten that we haven't seen, and that it will generally take a week to repair. This is something that's really good, and it's called Dicky Tummy. There is about 500 reviews. I got this from Amazon. There's about 500 reviews, and it's got a nearly 5-star rating. So I thought that was really good in itself. I got it. I actually used one of those syringes. It's got a little squirty top there, actually. But I used one of these syringes. In fact, I think one of these syringes came with it. I think you put it on top. That's right, you put it on top and then squirt it in their mouth. Watson cannot stand the taste of it, but I used it when he had an upset bum. He was still eating, but it looked like he'd got a colitis flare up. And I could not believe it that by that afternoon he was firm again. And so I feel like this really did the job, and it's great to have something that when he looks like he's having a colitis flare up, I can give him this and it works. If this didn't work immediately, I wouldn't keep giving it to him. I would have perhaps taken him to the vet, or, you know, let nature take its course. But it's really good to have something in that you can help them with, to see if it works. Okay, the third check is to check their temperature, and the first thing you can do is feel their nose, and their nose should be, again, moist and cold. If it is warm and dry, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are ill, but it's just in your list of things something that you can note. It is a clinical sign, if you like, but it could just be how their nose is at the time, but it's worth checking, just like I said, so you can see the whole picture. To take their temperature, there's two ways you can do it. You can either use a normal thermometer and put it up their bum, or you can use one of these that you put against their ear and do from a distance. Now obviously I bought one that you can do just by putting it near their ear, because I didn't want to put one up his bottom in case I injured him, or, you know, I didn't think it was very pleasant for him. However, it was a good one with, you know, high ratings, but it came out with different readings for him time after time after time, and so it just wasn't reliable. Then Kev got ill and I used the same one in his ear, and again it came up with different readings. So I personally don't think these ones that can just go, you know, in the ear or sort of near the ear are reliable. If anybody has one that they do find reliable, please let me know, because I'd love to find an easier way to do it. So instead I do use this type of thermometer. Put some Vaseline on it or some KY jelly or whatever you have, and then you gently put it into, I would say lie them on their side, find where their bum is, and you put it in about 1 inch. I would suggest only doing this if you have a very calm dog that you know is not going to wriggle, because if they are going to wriggle, then they might injure themselves, and I would be worried about putting, you know, a pointy metal thing somewhere that is very delicate. But for Watson, he's so good, and he will just basically let you do anything to him, including the vet. He's the same at the vets, and he doesn't seem to even notice it, to be honest. He just lays there. So I was able to get his temperature that way. But if you do think that your dog would wriggle too much, it would be too dangerous, then perhaps do try one of these other thermometers and just do it maybe 2 or 3 times. It's so easy. You just hold it there and press the button and see if you can come up with some kind of consistency. So to give you details of what the temperature should be, it should be between 101 to 102.5 Fahrenheit, which is 38.3 to 39.2 Celsius. So somewhere in that range. A little bit higher or a little bit lower is not an emergency, but it is a sign that something is not well. And so if they had a high temperature, you could use, you know, wet their fur, maybe spray their fur or put a cold towel over them. Right, yes, if they had a high temperature. If they had a low temperature, then obviously try and warm them up, hold them next to you. But if the temperature is greater than 104 Fahrenheit or 40 Celsius, that is a fever in a dog. Or I would say if it's anywhere near that, if it's even just a few below that, I would contact the vet. And if it is less than 99 Fahrenheit or 37.2, that is going the other way and also a reason to call the vet. Okay, so you will laugh at this. I'll give you a laugh. I bought a stethoscope because the next test is heart rate. And my husband thinks this is hilarious that I bought this. But the reason I bought it is because after the first aid course, I tried to find Watson's heart rate. And it takes quite a while to find it. And actually, I asked my husband to try it, and it took him a while to find it. But of course, with a stethoscope, you can hear much easier and you can find it much quicker, and it's much more accurate. So this cost a few pounds from eBay, and it works perfectly well. So like I said, it will give some people a laugh, but it actually works pretty well to take an accurate heart rate. The heart rate should be between 60 and 100 beats per minute. So the way that you take that is get them to lie on their right side if you can, and then you take the heart rate from the inner thigh. I'll put in a picture or maybe show on Watson where it is or something like that so that you can visually see it. And then basically just time it for 15 seconds, count the beats, and then times it by 4. If the heart rate comes out as too high or too low, that's another clinical sign that you can, you know, note down and look at the big picture, how many signs are there, and also you can let the vet know and they can tell you whether it's an issue or not. In fact, something worth noting is if you take down all of these, if you do all these tests and write down the results and are still concerned but don't necessarily want to, you know, pay for an emergency visit, say it's the weekend, you can phone the vet and, you know, give them what you have found and see if they think that you need to come in. The final check you can do is the respiratory rate, and the respiratory rate should be somewhere between, I think it's 10 and 35, yes, 10 and 35 raises of the chest per minute. So again, you can either put your hand on the chest and count how many times it rises, or you can watch it and count how many times it rises in 15 seconds and then times it by 4. Nothing special needed for this, no special position or anything, you can just watch the chest. And that's something else that you can let the vet know, you can note down if it's okay. And those are things that for me, when I did all of these the other day, they were all fine. The only thing that was unusual was that he wasn't eating, but he was still eating treats, so even that wasn't a big, you know, flashing light telling me to do something, and it just made me feel comfortable that I didn't need to take him to the vet, and I would see how he was the following day. And as it happened, like I said, he ate his food later on. At the same time, there was another friend of mine who, it was the opposite actually. She was eating her food, but she had a very upset tummy, a very upset bum, but she turned out to be okay as well. But I think I would say go with your gut instinct, you know, go with what you obviously can afford. Because there's been times when I've been like, you know, I'm not sure, but I'm just going to take them to the vet, and you know, it costs us, I think it's £38 for a consultation, which is pretty expensive. But there's sometimes I've just been like, you know what, we've got the money, I'm going to pay that just to make sure that he's okay, even though I kind of know that it's not really anything major. And now after 3 years, I feel like I'm able to make a balanced decision. But if you're at the beginning of your experience of owning a dog, then you may not feel that way, you know. And so I would say go to the vet. I've been to the vet so many times, And I've never regretted it. I've never gone, that was silly, I paid that money for nothing. Never ever have I regretted going. So if you're in any doubt, go with your gut feeling. But sometimes you know that you're like, I think I'm just worrying about nothing. So hopefully this has been helpful to you. Hopefully you can use some of these, like I said, either to settle your mind or to give you an indicator that you're not going mad. There probably is something wrong. You can give the vet a call rather than going in and say to them, you know, listen, his heart rate's a bit high and he's not eating or he's lethargic or whatever. What do you think? Do we need to visit? And get an opinion that way. So let me know if there's any other checks that you do on your dog. Obviously there's other things like hair loss and things that rashes and indicators that would quite obviously mean something was going wrong. But yeah, I hope this is useful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon.